When we think about cybersecurity, our minds immediately jump to firewalls, complex code, all that high-tech stuff. But what if I told you the single biggest security flaw isn't in our computers at all? What if it's us? There's this great story about a truck driver who gets his truck stuck under a tunnel. It's just a few inches too tall. So all these engineers show up, right? And they're proposing these incredibly complex, super expensive solutions. Things like blasting the tunnel wider or even airlifting the truck out. And then a little kid walks up, looks at the truck, and just asks that simple question. And that story, while it gets right to the very heart of what we're talking about today, letting the air out of the tires was the simple, totally non-technical, and, let's be honest, the most effective solution. This is the exact philosophy behind social engineering. Why spend months trying to crack some complex system when you can just ask someone for the key? So what is this secret weapon that hackers use to target people instead of machines? It's called social engineering. And trust me, it's way less about code and way more about confidence and straight-up manipulation. What's really interesting is how this is defined. Notice the word art. It's not a science. It's the art of exploiting our very human instincts. Our desire to be helpful, the way we trust authority, and of course, our fear of getting into trouble. So to really wrap our heads around social engineering, we have to look at the vulnerabilities they're going after. And spoiler alert, they're not in your software. They're hardwired into your psychology. And that's a crucial question, right? Why do we fall for these tricks, even when we feel like we should know better? Well, the answer is that these attacks are specifically designed to bypass our rational thinking brain and hit us right where our instincts live. Look, these attacks are all about pushing a few key emotional buttons. For instance, they might play on your natural desire to help a coworker who seems to be in a jam. Or they'll create this intense sense of fear, saying your account will be deleted if you don't act right now. Or, hey, maybe they'll tap into a little bit of greed with a prize that just sounds too good to be true. They're pushing our emotional buttons, not our computer buttons. And this is kind of the uncomfortable truth of it all. Pretty much every major study on cybersecurity comes to the same conclusion. It's not the firewall that fails first, it's not the encryption, it's usually a well-meaning person just trying to do the right thing who gets tricked into holding the door wide open for the bad guys. Okay, but how exactly do they pull it off? Let's crack open the social engineer's playbook and take a look at the actual techniques they use to get inside. All right, first up, just getting into the building. Now, you might hear these two terms, tailgating and piggybacking, used for the same thing, but there's a really important difference. Tailgating is all about deception. The attacker flashes a fake ID and just slips in behind you, looking like they belong. Piggybacking, though, that's more about manipulation. The attacker might have their hands full of boxes and just says, "Hey, could you get that for me?" They are literally banking on your instinct to be helpful. Of course, these attacks aren't just physical. When an attacker uses the phone, it's called vishing. This is when they might pose as someone from your bank or maybe IT support, using a really friendly, authoritative voice to build trust and talk you into giving up a password or a PIN number. Smishing is pretty much the same idea, but it comes through a text message instead. I'm sure you've seen these before, a scary alert about a package you never ordered or a problem with your bank account telling you to click a link or call a number immediately. It's all about creating a false sense of urgency. Okay, now this is where it gets really, really dangerous. Unlike some generic spam email that goes out to millions of people, spear phishing is personal. The attacker actually does their homework on you. They'll use your name, your job title, maybe even reference a project you're actually working on to create an email that looks incredibly legit. And that personalization is what makes it so devastatingly effective. This might be the cleverest trick in the entire playbook. With reverse social engineering, the hacker gets you to call them. So first, they'll create a problem, maybe a small network glitch. But before that, they've already advertised themselves as the go-to person for help. So when you call them, frustrated and needing a solution, you already trust them. Their job becomes incredibly easy. Now, all this might sound a bit theoretical, but let me tell you, the consequences are incredibly real. Let's take a look at what happens when these simple, low-tech hacks are used to pull off some massive digital heists. $39.1 million. Think about that. There was no complex code, no sophisticated software exploit. Attackers just pretended to be company executives, sent a few convincing emails to the finance department, and asked for wire transfers. That's all it took. And here's another one. $37 million gone. All it took was a single persuasive phone call, a classic vishing attack, that convinced a finance executive to change the bank account details for a huge transfer. One phone call. And this one's my favorite. So a security audit team wanted to bypass a company's state-of-the-art defenses. So what did they do? They sent an email about a new pizza place nearby. Employees ordered 8 pizzas. The delivery guy, who was part of the audit team, of course, shows up with the pizzas and some free gifts. These gifts were just USB sticks that, once they were plugged in, gave the team total remote access to the network. The cost of this entire sophisticated operation? 8 pizzas. Seeing those numbers, the question just becomes, how do you possibly defend against attacks like this? I mean, if technology isn't really the problem, then technology can't be the only solution, right?
And that's exactly why all the technical solutions in the world can fall short. You can have the most advanced security system money can buy, but none of that matters if an attacker can just charm an employee into giving them the password. A policy document is not a shield against manipulation.
So this brings us to the single most effective countermeasure there is. It's not about building higher digital walls, it's about making people smarter. Real user education means creating a human firewall. It's about building new habits. For instance, just recognizing that a sense of urgency is a massive red flag. Attackers want you to act before you have time to think. So your first defense is to just pause. And the second is to live by the rule, verify then trust. If you get an urgent email from your boss asking for something strange, don't reply to the email. Pick up the phone and call them on a number you already know is theirs. Or just walk over to their desk. Always use a separate channel to confirm. That one habit can stop the vast majority of these attacks cold. Which leaves us with a final, really challenging thought. We are constantly updating our software, patching vulnerabilities as soon as we find them, but when the vulnerability is our own built-in tendency to trust, our instinct to help, well, the fix is much, much more complicated. How do you patch a person?